I am not kidding when I say there is nothing better than spending a day at the beach, listening to the sounds of the ocean, the wind blowing through my hair, the sweet smell of seawater. I could stay here for the rest of my life. Couldn't you? Thrive Loud listeners, it is summer and we are ready to thrive. So break out your sunnies and SPF 30, hit the grill, the beach, the pool, the boat, and while you're doing all of this, be sure you are cranking up Thrive Loud. This summer is packed full with 3 to 4 episodes a week, lots of awesome minisodes, and even more celebrities, entrepreneurs, CEOs, you name it, we got it. Make Thrive Loud your ultimate podcast destination all summer long. We promise you will not be disappointed. And stay tuned for new and exciting things coming soon to Thrive Loud.
Get ready to Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have the co-founder and CEO of Qwil. He formerly was the SVP of Strategy at Xapo, the world's secure Bitcoin wallet and vault, where he helped evangelize Bitcoin in developing economies as an alternative to broken banking and financial systems. He is a recovering M&A lawyer. There's so many of you out there. Done over $10 billion in M&A deals before leaving big law to tackle financial inclusion. He's a UCLA Bruin, avid skier, yogi, and runs a company that's mission is to empower freelancers with the financial services they need to thrive, which is why he's perfect for our show today. With that being said, Thrive Loud listeners, Johnny Reinsch, CEO of Qwil. How are you, Johnny?
Hey, Lou, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
He's lying to the listener. He's lying to the listeners today because he's not doing that well. He's recovering from the flu. His wife has basically locked him in the house, and that was the only way we were able to get him on the show because he's a busy guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's all relative. Compared to where I was a couple of days ago, I feel great. So I'm very grateful for that.
No, definitely. And we're glad you're feeling better. We have you on in a featured week here where we are highlighting FinTech companies. So this is a great way for us to kick things off, Johnny. Give a little bit of the impetus behind focusing on this niche that you're doing at Qwil, and we'll jump around a little bit, but I think it's a very cool concept on why this company exists and why you're leading the charge. So I'll pass the baton for you and let you go down the slopes here because you're an avid skier. We'll use that as the analogy.
Absolutely. I also surf a ton, so we can call it being down the line if you want as well.
There you go. I like
either way. Yeah. So I honestly, when I was in M&A, I had this really interesting experience on a very large deal where I saw a founding team and their very supportive investors walk away from a significant amount of cash to go with a lower option as far as an acquirer. And the reason they did it was all on principle. They did it because they were unsure that the acquirer that was bidding, much higher, they were unsure what they would do with their technology, and they were worried that it would fall into, improper uses. And so they walked away from a staggering amount of cash just solely on that basis. And not only were the founders, 100% aligned as between the founding team, but the investors 100% backed them. And from my position at that point in my career, I was doing private equity deals. I was working for, strategic M&A groups. So it's all economically motivated up to that point in my career. And so I kind of scratched my head and realized, whoa, there's a bigger thing out here. There's something much, much more important than cash that is driving these founders to this decision. And it became clear to me that I was desperately looking for that intrinsic motivation as well. I was extremely lucky a few months after that happened to get recruited by a company called Xapo in the Bitcoin space, run by a phenomenal entrepreneur, Wences Casares, who had been out trying to solve a pain point that he had endured for his entire lifetime growing up in Argentina through technology. And the pain point that he had was because of the Argentinian currency controls and whatnot, his family had basically lost all their wealth numerous times as he'd been a young adult and an adult. And he viewed both the internet and then later Bitcoin technology as one of the best ways to actually break down a lot of that centralization within, government control and whatnot, and that he could finally, build a company that could really go after that mission that he had. And I was sold. So I spent a little over a year really understanding sort of the bowels of the global financial system, where the problems were with stored value, where the problems were with the credit system, how transmission broke down, especially when you run into the walls with currency controls. And we had a ton of great wins, really enabling financial services using blockchain, using the Bitcoin protocol, but for tons of people that were basically sitting on the outside of the financial system. Now, if you have a cell phone, you can get a Xapo account anywhere in the world, and you have access to a prepaid debit card that can work anywhere that's Visa's accepted. Mm-hmm. And you can transmit money anywhere, not to mention save. And eventually, I would imagine there'll be additional products built on top of that. And so I was really drinking that up and loved it. And all the while working at Xapo, I was freelancing on the side to supplement my income. As you can imagine, going from a senior associate at a large law firm doing very strategic and high dollar M&A, moving to a startup, I was making significantly less money. And that's an understatement. And so I used what I had learned in M&A, and I applied it very broadly in the freelancer market. So I was doing, fairly high-end freelancing to help advise companies based on where they were on high-level strategic matters. And so I was very reliant on this income in this business to really maintain my, my bills. I had student loans. I had a car payment. I had my condo in San Francisco, which was this tiny box, but had this, massive mortgage sitting on top of it.
Right.
And, I've got a wife and a dog and, all these expenses that they don't just go away because I decide to chase my far less lucrative dream of financial inclusion. So by supplementing my income, I was able to have the best of both worlds. 1 month, a client simply didn't pay on time. And this was longstanding client, very healthy business, nothing wrong with the business. It was simply by mistake, I would imagine, or somebody went on vacation, who knows. But the wire that I was very reliant on didn't arrive on the day that it should have. And as a result, I was a few days away from defaulting on my mortgage. So I go into, just like anybody in that position, we solved the problem, right? So first I start shaking the trees and the bushes and trying to figure out, what's going on? How can I get more info? Who at the company can I really point at to help me out here? And I basically got nothing back. And so I'm getting much more nervous at this point. I don't know if you've ever been faced with sort of a financial catastrophe like a mortgage default. I absolutely hope not. But what starts to arise and what arose in me at that point was, what's going to happen if I can't hustle and get this cash together? Do I lose my, my very tiny but very prized, castle in San Francisco? Do I have all this financial uncertainty that happens after that around my credit score? Do I lose my home?
Right.
And have I failed my family? All these things start swirling around at this time. And so I go to my bank, and this is the bank that I've worked with for, at this point, I don't work with them anymore. We'll talk about that in a second. But
I'm looking forward to that part of the conversation, but keep going.
I went to my bank, and I knew them personally. I knew the loan officers personally because they helped me get the mortgage in a very competitive situation to be able to get my place. They helped me get my car loan so that I could get the car that I needed for living in California. And almost every other financial product that I had, with the exception of my student loans that are owned by the government, they helped me with. And so I go in there and I told them my situation. I told them the type of freelancing I was doing, my leap from M&A, which they knew about, to startup land. And they were very earnest, and they obviously wanted to help, but they didn't have any options within the bank. There were no products that they could offer me for just a really quick, very small, low single digit, thousand cash infusion,
Right.
just to cover me for, about a week or two. And so they started brainstorming ideas, and payday loans came up. And so they actually referred me out to payday lenders to try and get that cash infusion. And guess what my APR was going to be if I did that?
Probably double digits.
Try again.
Wow. Unbelievable. How
Yeah.
high? Yes.
Exactly. It would have been somewhere from 250% to 350% annualized.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And I was not excited about that prospect on a few fronts, but in general, I felt very much let down by this, important and longstanding relationship that I had with my bank. I thought that they were actually, a partner in my finances, but it turned out they didn't have anything for me.
Right.
And so by sheer force of will, I was able to plant myself in the company's payables group until somebody sent my wire out, and got it in with, I think, like 18 hours or something to spare, like right down to the wire. But I still had this burning couple of questions in the back of my head of why couldn't my bank help me in that situation? And then who else is having a similar problem? Within the context of me and the rest of the team at Xapo sort of unleashing banking services in the developing world, it seemed very odd to me that, in one of the best credit systems in the entire world, one of the potential best borrowers that just walked in the door to get a product couldn't get anything.
This is great. I'm gonna put a pin in this for a sec, because I think you've nailed something here, which is so true about the banking system, which has gone through basically, a rigmarole over the last 10 years, and obviously having to deal with the financial crisis and come back and a whole bunch of other problems. But what you just hit, in a world that's growing with the number of gig economy type businesses out there, and this uncertain business function within traditional banking, you are a gazillion % right. There's a gap here on how to handle different types of situations, or even these independent contractor or freelancing type situations, to be able to help, because this is the direction that most of the world is heading towards over the next 10 to 15 years. We're going to see ridiculous growth if we haven't already. So continue.
Yeah, no, and you're 100% right. And you've hit on really kind of the high level answers to my two questions. So my first question was, why wasn't there a product for me? Why wasn't there a product from the world's shiniest, best banking system for, one of the best borrowers that could have walked in there? And very simply, our credit system's really, really good at doing specific things. So when the group helped me get my mortgage and basically win the property in a very, very interesting situation where it was in short sale, they were happy to jump all over that and make sure that the deal got done in, basically less than 48 hours. And that's because mortgages are sent through our credit system very efficiently. They work so well, and the system understands them so well that they can be fast tracked like that. For me, in my situation, when I needed a little bit of cash to avoid defaulting on that mortgage that they helped me out with, my income was freelance. When you are a freelancer coming into a bank, they don't really know what to do with you. And
Right.
Especially if you haven't had 2 years of very solid work experience, ideally with a high skill and some assets to back you up, you're not going to get a lot of stuff. Not to mention, a couple $1,000s from a large bank is very onerous for them to actually lend out. So, it costs a bank, probably $1,000 to acquire a new customer. They don't want to acquire a customer and then loan them $2,000. They want to acquire a customer and help them buy a home, so that they're making money off of how much it costs to bring that customer in the door. So that's the first one. There simply was not a product that would have made sense for my bank to give me in that situation. And then two, who else? It's every freelancer, it's every SMB that's getting off the ground. Anybody that was even remotely related to my shoes in that situation is going to have this same problem. And it doesn't matter if you're in the US in our wonderful credit system that we have, or if you're in Argentina, or if you're in Europe, you're going to have the same issue, because the same basic, breakdown of the product and the underwriting models is pervasive across the entire global financial system. So I realized it was big, as you mentioned, big gap. I would say gaping hole.
Gotcha. No, sorry. There you go. You're catching your breath there. So big gap, big gaping hole. Here you are at Xapo. Obviously, you know that there's something missing. How did we get from the understanding that there's a gaping hole to, by the way, hopefully figuring out your payment situation of your apartment at that point, and then switching into the gears of what Qwil is doing today?
Absolutely.
Let's share what Qwil does, and that will help people understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so going back to back in time a little bit, Wences, who has been a phenomenal mentor to me and very helpful for me both personally and for Qwil at various times, he kind of sensed that I was doing something, that something had happened to me, and that my wheels were spinning. And so he pulled me aside, and we had a very, very clear, frank discussion about what had happened and what I was thinking. And, he basically told me, there's no way we can build this product here. This is not what we do. But, you're onto something. And not only are you onto something, but this happened to you, and you understand how big of a deal it is. So he kind of kicked me, over the ledge and said, go start this company, go figure out this problem. And I think you can do it. So it was kind of a big moment in my career as an entrepreneur, of another entrepreneur that I respected, and respect a ton, basically saying, you can do this.
It's great to have great support and great mentors along the way. So kudos to you. Excellent.
Absolutely. And so I had been working with my co-founders, Paul and Trevor, on various things at various points. Paul and I have attempted to get a brewery off the ground in SF. Trevor and I have always been scheming on various business stuff, and he and I had worked together on some M&A in the past. And so we started to put our heads together and decide, well, what product could we deliver that Johnny would have taken in that situation? And we knew that we didn't want it to be a predatory product. We didn't want it to look like Payday. We didn't want it to be in the triple digit yield by any means. But the problem was, how do you erode that customer acquisition cost and the really intense cost of onboarding a customer if you're a bank or an alternative lender? And so we realized that instead of building an online bank for freelancers and sort of acquiring freelancers directly, that would be too costly, and ultimately we would just look like kind of like an online payday lender for freelancers. Instead, we decided to build a technology platform that we would embed into the ecosystems where freelancers and SMBs both look for work and get paid for work, and offer advances based on the data we're collecting from within those ecosystems to every single person that is working or getting paid in those ecosystems. So it's a technology platform that essentially is capturing data in real time for a freelancer working in a freelancer marketplace, or a small business that is invoicing through an invoicing platform, and making advance offers in real time to those folks when they're completing their work. We started very simply with freelancer marketplaces, and then expanded it to the payment networks in the last year and a half or so.
So this is pretty smart. So what you've actually done is you created a community, which obviously has needs for those that need to get paid, but also has a community of people with those specific skills within that. So obviously you have a universe of people to talk to. Yep. And then you've expanded that obviously into doing more of those, what the businesses need, like automated payments, hiring contractor forms, and any other types of APIs. So let me ask this question. So walk me through somebody actually trying to get paid, how that would work if they were a freelancer.
Absolutely. So there's an early customer that we're very excited to still be working with, and has been a phenomenal customer for us. But it's a freelancer marketplace of drone pilots. So yeah, and it's super cool. Drone pilots are great because let's say you are USAA and you need to process claims for your customers, and there was a big natural disaster or something. You don't want to send human claims adjusters into those areas because they could get hurt. Using a drone pilot means that you reduce the incidence of injury within the people that need to assess the claims, while delivering the claims results much faster because you can just fly the drone around.
Pretty cool.
So yeah, no, it's really cool. I love that company, and I think we're going to see some really amazing stuff from them. But so if you are a drone-based pilot, DroneBase uses our APIs to both onboard. So anytime you sign up for being a pilot, you get your FAA certification, and you're off to the races, and you're ready to go work on the platform for their clients. You then also onboard through us, and we collect information about who you are, so that for banking and regulatory reasons we can actually pay you. We then collect banking info so that we know where to send funds and how you want to send funds. And then you go off and do work. At the point in time when so let's say, as a freelance drone pilot, you go and do a claims assessment, and you're assessing roof damage from, a big natural disaster that happened. The drone flies around, it takes imagery, the claims adjuster confirms the images, and boom, the work is approved. At that point of approval, we're capturing all that data in real time. And we do two things with the data. We flip an email to the pilot and say, hey, congratulations, you've earned however much money, and we estimate you're going to receive it on this day, and we're usually right. And then two, we offer them the ability to take funds in advance if they want to, so that they can avoid 14 days or so of lag time between when their work actually was performed and approved and when they actually received their funding. And if they want to take that advance, that's great. It's entirely up to them. It's low cost. It funds on the same day or the next day. And if they don't want to take it, that's fine too. When the client pays DroneBase, we just pass funds through, and people receive their money on the day that we estimated for them.
That's very cool. Johnny, in this instance, obviously, how is Qwil making money?
So when we do charge platforms like DroneBase for use of the API and the service.
Gotcha.
And so there is some subscription fee baked in there that they're paying for. And then to the extent that a freelancer within one of these platforms takes an advance, there's an associated small fee, and it'll be on the low end, basis points, and on the high end, I think maybe a 5% discount to whatever the amount was. So if they're going to earn $100, it would be anywhere from pennies to maybe $5 discount to the face amount of what they're earning.
So this is great. You've taken one of the unique challenges you personally had to experience as a freelance, created a platform and a community, for lack of a better word, that enables freelancers to get paid faster and manage their money, and also have connected the traditional business worlds as well as a means to actually get that payment in there. This is spectacular.
Thank you.
Where do you want to take Qwil to?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, the amount of things that have to happen for the advances to go out the door is pretty amazing. The data we're collecting, the underwriting we're performing, the buy-in that we have to have, and the interface that we have to have with the capital markets, we've really put together a new sort of asset class that now is something that's more palatable for the freelancers and SMBs that really do need some cash so they can grow their businesses. I want to continue growing within the segment. I see that the freelancer market itself is going to continue growing very quickly. And I want to make sure that we have as much capacity and as much reach so that any freelancer that is out on the street and performing its work doesn't have to be in the position that I was in. Now, as we're growing and growing very, very quickly, there are additional financial services that we're going to want to add as well to our ecosystem. And I don't have a good sense yet of what's going to move the needle the most, but we do get, a lot of feedback from our freelancers and our SMBs, and very simple things like, freelancers have very low access to things like disability insurance, to healthcare, all the things that you get as a full-time employee that show up on your pay stub as deductions. We all hate seeing that, but they're actually really good services that afford a lot of protections. And, ultimately over the next few years, I think what you'll see within Qwil is more of those offerings that are being added onto the existing liquidity offering, which is the number one hands down thing that people want today. But we want to really build out and make sure that there's a robust offering so that all the needs are met, and that being a freelancer in the US isn't this onerous thing. It's very empowering, and it like the title says, free. It has that freedom associated with it.
This is pretty impressive stuff. I want to go back to the bank situation that had happened. And I guess, obviously, you've created a whole fiefdom that doesn't need to interact with the traditional banks. Obviously, there's payments and accounts that go through it, but you've created a way to provide this without their services. Have you drawn attention from that community as to, look what they've done?
Yeah, for sure. The basics of where our system interacts today are for transmission and store of value. We absolutely rely on the banking layer for that. And then where there's the most excitement is, people are starting to realize that, we're unlocking sort of this new credit source that doesn't need to be priced really high because, how we're plugged in and how we're able to underwrite much better than, a traditional bank. But the capital markets have definitely taken note and are very excited to provide us with enough capacity so that we can, achieve our growth goals. And that's super exciting because convincing the capital markets to adopt a new asset class is a very tough, slow, uphill battle. But I think we've done it. And that's what excites me, because I know that we'll have enough availability of funds to be able to advance out to our freelancers.
This is great stuff. And I'm going to ask this question because I think it's an obvious one, but I'm curious. Do you miss the M&A legal community? Or you're glad glad the move that you've made?
Well, I'm very glad with the move I made. I wouldn't say that I miss it, but honestly, the thing, I loved M&A. It's strategically, it's super fun. You have to be basically playing a few different games of chess all at once to really be doing it right and be good at it. The thing that I don't miss at all is billing my time. I hated billing my time. It felt much more like value extraction versus right now I probably work the same amount, if not more. As you and I were talking about before jumping on, my wife forbade me from leaving the house because I was refusing to stop working while I was fighting the flu. I probably work a similar amount, but I really feel down to my core that we've created this valuable thing now. And so the motivation now isn't, oh man, I've got to build more time. It's, oh man, I've got to make sure that we have enough money to send out the door for our freelancers today. Mm-hmm. I've got to make sure that we're growing and making sure that we can do 10x this volume for the next year, which is what our plan tells us. So it's a very different motivation. And I'm very grateful for where I landed.
Johnny, I love asking guests on this program this question, and you have some pretty interesting things that you do. So I want to hear which one you go to. When you have an off day, I know a couple of days ago you couldn't move out of bed with the flu, but let's say you're healthy and you're not quite on your regular game. Who or what practice do you seek to help get yourself back on the thriving track?
I have a few things that I regularly lean on for refreshing, and I think yoga and surfing are the two like mindless things, or mindful things, I think is a better way to say it, that are very recharging for me and that I absolutely love doing. Also, hanging out with my big fluffy dog and my wife, obviously.
What kind of dog is it? What kind of dog do you have?
He's laying on the floor at my feet right now. He's a German Shepherd Malamute mix, and he's very much asleep right now, as in a ball of his own fur.
That's awesome. Let's do the admin part right now before we get to the final fun questions on the program. Johnny, if you could share with the listeners all the places people can learn about Qwil, how to spell it, and where they can go on social media, websites. We will put it all in the show notes, but let's send it out there from you, because when they hear it from you, it always gets more engagement.
Absolutely. And nobody can see my t-shirt right now, but it's spelled Qwil. And you can visit us at Qwil.com. We're at Qwil on Twitter, and we're on LinkedIn and Facebook as well.
Awesome. All right. So a couple of questions here, because in the spirit of our little FinTech week we've got going on, I've got this question and then our signature question. If you could, Johnny, with all of the new financial technology and you've been from a world of Bitcoin, you've obviously dealt with new FinTech that's out there. Aside from your own, what's a recent or new financial technology service or product that you have seen recently that you really, really liked? Something that's new to the market that has really caught your eye?
I don't know about new to the market, but there's a technology company that I'm just so thankful for because it's been so enabling for financial inclusion. And I want to call out Plaid. Without Plaid, every company like Qwil, every new lending platform that is trying to bring about financial inclusion would basically have to either rely on bad data for linking bank accounts, and it causes a lot of sort of onerous issues. But Plaid has built this just amazing connecting point to the entire backbone of the banking system. So I'm super bullish on Plaid. I love Plaid, and I'm glad that we're working with them.
Yeah, it's very funny. We've had CEO of Buy It Mobility, BIM Networks, who does Adam Frisch, who's been on the program. They do an ACH platform direct from your phone, avoiding all the interchange fees. It's a pretty cool service. And Plaid is obviously one of the ways in the enrollment piece to link up with all the bank accounts that they utilize. So very, very cool. Great to see that all these people are benefiting from them. We should probably get
that's one to watch for sure.
I think I know the guy too. So we got to work on that
for sure. Let me know if I can be helpful.
We might have to do that. Okay, so now I'll ask you our signature question on the show, Johnny. Your all-time favorite movie?
Tron, the first one, not the reboot.
The Jeff Bridges original one?
Absolutely. That's like, I used to have that on Laserdisc when I was growing up, so I'd have to flip it over halfway through. But I watched that movie, I have no idea how many times, and it does not stand the test of time, but I will still watch it an endless number of times.
That's, by the way, a wonderful point. It's like when you see how amazing some of the technologies are out there today and what they were doing or trying to visually show back then, it was innovative at the time, and now it just looks weird.
It looks so bad.
They used to have the Tron video game, which was one of the weirder things. Like, that was a situation where the video game came out after the movie, as opposed to like them making it the other way around, which happens all the time. Oh, that's too funny. But that is a good,
I remember that game. I love that game too, by the way.
Yeah, it was got the little spin dial thing to move around. It was always a little hard.
And I always wanted a light bike. So if you can ever help make that happen, let me know.
We do a lot of things on Thrive Loud, Johnny. I don't know if I somehow think you may have more connectivity to it. We could find a freelance guy that might be able to develop one for us. How about that?
That sounds good.
Johnny, this has been great having you on the program. Much success to you and Qwil, and obviously get well soon, man. Keep drinking that coffee or tea or whatever you got going on, and feel better so she can let you out of the house.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lou. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on.
You got it. And to all our Thrive Lab listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
Grid is live. Initiate light cycle battle.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.